What's up guys, welcome to our first ever Modern Challenge review. We managed the top 8 the Modern Challenge this weekend with Boros Energy. So we're just going to do a play-by-play review of this challenge similar to our normal videos. First, let's talk a little bit about our list, and then we'll get into the gameplay. So the actual Boros Energy list has become pretty stock these days. There are a few flex spots, so let's go over them. In today's list, we're running 2 Ranger Captain of Eos, 4 Seasoned Pyromancer, and 1 March of Otherworldly Light. The Ranger Captains are really good, especially because Temur Breach is such a popular deck. So having these main board is really nice, and it can be a nice 2-for-1 grabbing any of your 1-drops. We're trying the set of Seasoned Pyromancer this challenge. You can run any set amount of Spyros. Sometimes you'll see Fable and Spyro mixed. Sometimes you'll see all Fable and no Spyro. It all depends on preference. It also helps that Orcish Bowmasters doesn't see much play anymore, so Spyro gets that much better. Fable is more of a grindy card, so you can choose not to draw. It also creates a bunch of must-answer cards, like the Goblin Shaman token and the flip side. And then finally, we have 1 March of Otherworldly Light. I've really been impressed with this card. I've been playing it in my other white decks, and just having that instant speed exiling effect is really good. For our sideboard today, we're running 2 Orms Chant. This is for combo and big mana decks. We have 3 Stony Silence for artifact decks, an additional March just because it's so flexible, 2 Wrath of Skies for board wipes, 4 Molten Rain for Tron and big mana decks, 1 Showdown. I haven't been too impressed with this card, but it is good in grindy matchups, like against the Mirror and the Orzhov decks. And then finally, we have 2 Wear Tears for artifact and enchantments. So that is our Boros Energy challenge list. I want to remind you guys that we are part of the MTG Creator Program, so we have lots of play points to give away to our subs. And if you're interested in becoming a YouTube channel member, you get access to cool perks like loyalty badges, cool emotes, and early access to videos like this one. So if you want to see more content like this and you want to win some play points, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let's get in the gameplay. All right, so this is match 1 against Domain Zoo. And this starting hand is really good. We have a nice curve with Ocelot Pride, God of Souls. This is probably one of the best hands you could ask for. So in the blind, we're 100% keeping this. The main reason I start off with God of Souls instead of Ocelot Pride is because if they do play a creature and we can't attack into it with Ocelot Pride, we can't trigger the life gain. So I think it's mostly good to start with God of Souls in the blind especially, so that way you can trigger Ocelot Pride. So we play God of Souls, they play Ragavan. This is like best case scenario. They tapped out, they play a creature that's really bad against our deck. So now looking at our hand, we draw Seasoned Pyromancer, immediately just playing Ocelot Pride and passing. Don't have to think too hard about that play. We surveil a Flooded Strand into the yard because we don't need any more lands. Opponent plays Tumble Garden and passes, so they don't do anything. They didn't kill any of our creatures. They're clearly holding up a 2-mana creature, right? So we're going to fetch. We're going to play Goblin Bombardment first. We do attack with Ocelot Pride because we know that if they are holding up a Thrall, we have the cat token to do our thing. They flash in Doorkeeper Thrall, which is totally fine. So we're going to wait for blocks. And they block this just exactly how we planned it out. So we're going to ping it once. And then because of first strike, we just get to kill the Doorkeeper Thrall. And we get to gain life. So that was just kind of like a not the best play by our opponent there. And then we get to make a token. So our opponent attacks with Ragavan. So clearly we're going to block with the cat token, get the trade. Not exactly sure what they were going for with that attack. We untap, we draw a land. We get to play out a Johnny with Goblin Bombardment. We just kind of have everything right now. So they're going to tap mana. So they have Leyline Binding. Okay. So this is fine. We're going to let this go. They actually Leyline Bind the Goblin Bombardment instead of the creatures. So we get to get in with everything. Trigger God of Souls, Ocelot Pride. They're down to 10. There's like no way they're getting out of this, right? And they concede. So this was probably the most like basic Boros Energy sequencing that you can get in terms of curving out, having Goblin Bombardment, a Johnny, and everything else. All right, so game 2, we're on the draw. And because we're up against Domain Zoo, this hand seems kind of medium. We have like double God of Souls. We do have removal for Ragavan, Wrath of Skies maybe in the later game, but we decide to ship it. Looking back, maybe the hand was okay. So we ship into a 1-lander with triple God of Souls. And we do keep this just because we have the Surveil land. We put back a God of Souls. Oh, actually, never mind. We decide to put back the other card. I think because we want to kind of overrun with God of Souls. Maybe that's what we were thinking. We draw a land, which is nice. Because we drew the land, we don't have to Surveil. So we're just going to run out the God of Souls. They Surveil a land into the yard. We attack. This attack's pretty free because even if they flash in Thrall, this doesn't die. You can always play the land first just in case. But we're just going to play Arena of Glory, play God of Souls. So they did have the Thrall. So this is their really good curve out. So they have Thrall on turn 2, Kavu on turn 3. They don't attack. We like this because we actually get to play out Flage now. So coming up, this is going to be an interesting point. And now there's going to be like 2 ways to handle this. We unfortunately take the worser. So they attack with all. So here's the thing. We can not block here. Actually, so looking back, they don't have white mana untapped. What I was worried about was them like Leyline Binding this, and then we're just kind of screwed. So we actually should have just let this go. So we would take 6, and then we could get in for 9, gain 3. So because they have the red mana source open and they have first strike, we're kind of giving them in the out here. So they do have the bolt. So if we just didn't block, we would have been in a much better position. So we draw a land for turn. We play Guide of Souls, and then we're just gonna hold up Thraben Charm as removal. So again, looking back, knowing they don't have Leyline Binding mana up, we shouldn't have blocked there. They attack with all. They trigger Kavu. We're going to Thraben Charm. They're going to stub it. So game 3 on the play. This is another 1-lander, so we have to ship it. This is a 4-lander, but we're not going to go to 5. This is going to be fine enough. This is a very defensive hand. So we have Wear Tear for Leyline Binding and Guild Pact, Static Prison for early creatures, Molten Rain for their Triomes. So they start with a Leyline. We're like, sure. We're going to Surveil. We're going to try to find some threats. They play a tapped Arena of Glory. So right there, that is just kind of like a red flag. Because if you had a fetch land, if you had any land to keep this untapped, you would probably play that first, Surveil, try to find some more threats or anything, or just have a turn 1 play. So we Surveil, Thraben Charm. Because we have the Wear Tear, we're going to put that in the yard. We need like actual threats. We're going to untap. We draw a threat, which is nice. And immediately we're going to plan to Surveil with this, and we're going to tear. So our opponent's stuck on 1 land. So they kept a 1-lander with Leyline, hoping to get there. We're going to Surveil, Discharge. We put Discharge in the yard. Because they're not doing anything, we really want to find like aggressive creatures. We find another land, unfortunately, but we get to play out Arid Mesa, play out a Johnny, and then they just concede. So they missed their land drop for the 3rd time, and they're just off it. All right, so round 2 against Mono Blue Belcher. And this is a 6-card hand with a Seasoned Pyromancer, so obvious mulligan. This hand is better. Not the greatest, but we're definitely going to keep a 2-land hand with some action. So we keep this, deciding what to put back. I don't think this is an easy choice. So we have our creature, we have removal. Goblin Bombardment's going to be good in the long run. Thraben Charm's very flexible. Because we are only on 2 lands, and we kind of have all this going on, I think we decided to put back, I think that's the right choice. You guys let me know if you would put back anything different. The only reason I was considering keeping Ranger is because it's an additional threat that can find us more threats because we are threat light, but we're missing lands, and I kind of just want to stay as low to the ground as possible. So we decided to put back Ranger. We just start off with the Guide of Souls, nothing fancy. Opponent actually misclicks. So they try to Disrupting Shoal our Guide of Souls. They do have a 1-mana spell in hand, which their messages imply. So they misclicked and accidentally pitched the wrong one. So lucky us, right? So they just play Lab Pass. They're holding the 1-mana counter up. Fortunately for us, we don't have the 1-mana creature. Stern Scolding, that's the one. So they have a Stern Scolding in hand. So we could play Goblin Bombardment. We probably should have, looking back, but we're opting to Surveil to try to find more threats. Again, not sure if we should just be jamming everything, but the fact that they shocked this in, I was maybe afraid of Spell Pierce. So it's not necessary to play into that. So they play a tapped Dravari Ruins. We get to Surveil. It's another land, so that's obviously going in the bin. We draw Ocelot Pride, which is awesome. We're super excited about that. Except, so we bait with Goblin Bombardment, actually. And then we attack with Guide of Souls. We're wondering like why they shocked that in all those turns ago. But I guess we should have known if they're not countering this, they're not killing this. What could it be? Like it has to be Stern Scolding. But I think it's fine to get that out of their hand. Like we're going to have to get that eventually. So it is what it is there. It really would have been nice to resolve that though. It's also tempting. Maybe you wait. And because you can assume they have something, you just wait for them to tap out. But if they never tap out, then you're just kind of screwed. They find a Suppression Ray, so they play that out. We draw Spyro, which is a pretty fantastic draw. So we're actually just going to slam that. Discharge isn't doing much. We could get their creature to play around free counters, but we just kind of want to get everything down. Get some redraws, get some fodder for Goblin Bombardment, maybe find some lands. Unfortunately, we find 2 lands, so a little bit too much, but we do get to trigger Guide of Souls, swing in for 3 there. Try to get as much pressure as possible. That's the name of the game against Belcher. You want to pressure them as fast as possible just because this is typically an unfavorable matchup for us. And then we draw another land. So 3 really bad draws in a row. We do still have a Surveil with Windswept Heath. We get in for some attacks. They block. We sack in response. So they go to 11. So this is the funny thing. So this is the first Bayin Veil. So they cast that. We do like no damage. They pass. We pass. They play a tap land and just pass. We find March. We put that in the bin again, just because we need threats. We're going to cast Ocelot Pride, and then we're going to get in with everything. Trigger Guide of Souls. Can you guess what's coming next? We're going to sack the token that they're blocking, and then they're going to cast the second Bayin Veil. So we only do 2 damage there, but we do get a bunch of cats. And opponent's just going to play a tap land and pass. Can you guess what they're holding up? We find Ragavan. So now we have a lot of threats. We're just going to swing out. We gave Seasoned Pyromancer flying. You could have given Ragavan flying as well. It really doesn't matter. I don't think they're going to block Ragavan. We're going to ping. And then they're going to cast the 3rd Bayin Veil. But then at this point, it just doesn't matter. Because they go to 4, and then we have 5 creatures we can sack. So maybe giving Ragavan flying was better because it would have connected, even through Bayin Veil. So we get game 1, which is really nice against Belcher. So game 2 against Belcher, we have like triple removal. And then we have some aggression. We're going to keep this hand. They suspend a Lotus Bloom on turn 1. And this hand's good against their early creatures to play around free spells. This can tag Lotus Petals. This can get creatures, or if they just play a Naked Belcher. And then we have some threats. We draw another Static Prison, not the greatest hand. We do plan on surveilling with this, though. They play a tapped Springs. We're going to surveil. We find another discharge into the graveyard. Ragavan's a good pickup, but because we want to utilize our mana, we're just going to play out a Johnny, which gets Shoaled, pitching, Bane Veil. And that's fine. It's a good 2-for-1 for us. And then we have just another Ajani. They are doing a really good job at stalling. So now we have 3 mana. So now we get to actually haste everything. So we're going to haste Ragavan, and then we're going to cast Ajani and haste that as well. And I'm fine with doing this just because we can get the treasure. So we can hold up anything like this. We can hold up a March for 0 or Discharge for 1. We hit an Unable to Scream, which doesn't do anything. The Lotus Blooms are close to coming off Suspend. They cast 1. And they play Torva Orb. I don't really understand why they side this in, if I'm being honest. Like, it stops some of our creatures, but I don't think that's kind of where you want to be. And they cast Portable Hole. So they target Ajani, which is nice that we have the treasure token up. So we're going to use Galv Blast. We're going to kill our cat token, and then we're going to force them to act. So they're going to sink into Stupor the Discharge. So that happens. They eat our Ajani, which is like fine. It is what it is. Not a big deal. We have so much removal for Portable Hole if we want it. We find Flage, and as we know, Flage is really good with Torb Orb. So we get in with both. Ragavan finds a Thunderclap Trainer, which we don't want that, and we're just going to play out Flage. So it's a 3-mana 6/6, similar to our Domain Thrall video. So we're basically playing out Flage saying, do you have it? We find a land, we attack with all. They play Hydroelectric Specimen. So that was the last card in their hand, so we know they have nothing else. We're swinging out for lethal here, and then we have the instant speed removal with March. So we exile this, and we win. All right, round 3, we're against Yawgmoth, and this is another terrible 7. We have 5 lands, Spyro, and Thraben Charm, so easy mulligan. Unfortunately, now we have no land, so we're going to mulligan again. Not a good way to start off your round 3, 2-0. We find a really good 5, so we're going to keep this, and we're going to put back Ranger and Flage. This combo right here is just so good, and we don't need the other things right now, especially in the blind. So this is an easy turn 1 Ocelot Pride, and then just pass. They play Blooming Marsh, looking to dodge a Fatal Push. We see Yawgmoth. We know this is Yawgmoth, and we're excited that it's a Yawgmoth. Unfortunately, we draw the worst card in the matchup, which is Ragavan. But we do get in. So we get the trigger Ragavan. We play out Goblin Bombardment first before Johnny. We know that they have a lot of removal, so it's good to get Bombardment out first, and then we could always ping them in response. You want to try to get their life points as low as possible, so that way Yawgmoth is less good. So they just go land, go, really good for us. And they could be holding up Bowmasters, we're not sure. So because of that, we're going to play out a Johnny on the main phase. They have Boseiju. So a little unfortunate for us, but we do get the land drop. We get the... Do we surveil here? Yeah, we surveil instead of getting an untapped land for Ragavan. It's because it doesn't really do much here. We find the discharge that we do keep. I think removal is important, even though it's kind of whatever. We do attack with the cat token because if they want to block, a Johnny will flip. They do block. We do get to flip a Johnny. And even though we don't have a red source, we're fine with it. If we did have the untapped land, we would have played out Ragavan before doing that. So I just assumed they wouldn't block, to be honest. They play a land and pass. So right now we're sitting really pretty. We get to play Ragavan. We have discharge for the Yawgmoth. So we play out Ragavan first, and then we're going to 0 just to make sure we can get all our damage in before they have any responses. Unfortunately, they do have the Bowmaster, and they do ping Ragavan, so we don't get to do any damage. So we attack with just the 2 cat tokens. We don't attack with Ocelot Pride because they would probably just triple block, and we can't discharge, kind of cheese them out. But we're fine with attacking with these 2 and holding some up for protecting a Johnny. They surveil, but they keep it on top. So they find the Yawgmoth, so in response, we're going to kill the Yawgmoth so they can't do any undead shenanigans. It's so annoying because they can kind of machine gun down our creatures. So what we're going to do, plus, we're going to uptick. Looking back too, and I saw this during the game, I was wondering if we should have played out a Johnny first, but because they gave us the priority, I didn't want to cast this and then they kill all our stuff. They could do it now, which I guess it doesn't really matter when we did it, but we probably should have played out a Johnny first too. That was a little mistake. We made a few mistakes / misclicks this game, which cost us the game, unfortunately. It cost us the match, but you guys will see that. Right now, this match is looking really good for us. We just swing out because we know we have an Ajani to block if need be. They go to 7. We play out our other Ajani that we should have played out first. They green sun for 2. They find Hapatra. They start kind of mowing down our creatures. They're going down to 4. They play a bunch of stuff. They're at 4. We're going to down tick, the rare down tick on Ajani. So each opponent has to sacrifice a creature. Or each opponent has to sacrifice all but 1 creature. So they kill all our stuff, which is fine. And then we actually flip the other Ajani, so that way we can start making more cats. So they sack everything except for Yawg. We 0, we play our land. A little flooded. So they're at 1. They play Innkeeper. They play Wall of Roots. They play Grist. They're coming back. We Surveil, Captain. We actually bin that. Oh, you know what? Oh, yeah. See, we punted so much this game. So if we keep that Captain, we actually just get Ragavan 0 and then just win. So there you go. First huge punt there. I was thinking we needed something more, and that was literally it right there. And then they just kind of get the combo. They drew a million cards, and then we just lose. So we threw away game 1. There you go. All right, game 2. This is a 1-lander. I really want to keep this hand just because it's pretty insane, but we do throw it back just because we don't want to be too greedy. We are rewarded with a pretty solid hand, so we're going to keep this. We're going to put back Flage just because they have so many endurance. They can tutor endurance, and this hand's really good. So we play out Guide of Souls. They just push it immediately, which is fine. We play out Goblin Bombardment for the reasons like I said before. We want to get that out before Ajani. Find another Spyro, not a land, but we still have to play out Ajani, and we're going to try to flip it. It could be greedy. They could have push again, but they just used 1. So hoping they don't have like double push. But we get the Goblin Bombardment, activate Ajani. They had Bowmasters. So they ping. They do get in. We decide to block the Orc Army just in case they play another Bowmasters that could kill this, and it would grow the Orc Army. So to prevent that, we block, sack here, and kill the Bowmaster. So Ajani takes no damage. And they play Outland Liberator, which we're excited to see because we know we have another bombardment ready. And we get to draw the 3rd land, which is awesome. So we're going to play out that, and then we're going to plan to Surveil and Spyro next turn. Play Wall of Roots into Cauldron. We're going to Surveil. Land we do not need, so that goes in the graveyard. We find another land. We're definitely going to play out the land because we're going to discard it anyway. So I guess we're going to haste Spyro, because why not? Discard, Spyro. We find a discharge, which is nice. We know that they're going to activate Soul Cauldron, so we're actually going to ping this, and then in response, we're going to discharge it. They could have the Liberator ability and just start killing our stuff. So because they're tapped out, they can't do that yet, so we definitely have to get that off the battlefield. So yeah, we just ping it with a creature. We don't even use discharge. And then we get in with both of our creatures, attack for 4. They have the Boseiju again, unfortunately. We do get the Elegant Parlor, eat our Spyro. We find a Guide of Souls. We decide to bin that, and then we end up drawing a land. So we bin Guide of Souls just because it's a little slow. We kind of want like more action. Maybe it's fine to keep it just to add to the creature threat here with Ajani. Looking back, we could have kept the Guide of Souls, played it, 0'd, hit them for 5, Galvanic Discharge for 1, for 3 energy, swing out, and buff our creatures. But we get there anyway. So a lot of hindsight for this match. All right, game 3 of match 3. This is where we make some misclicks and totally punt the game away. So our 7 is pretty fantastic. We have board wipes, we have threats, we have removal. We draw our 3rd land, which we don't want to draw anymore. But we're going to start with the obvious Pride, see if they have the push. We're just kind of forcing it out of their hand at this point. Like, we could not play that. They're going to push eventually. We could have Surveilled, but we kind of want to sequence that we're using all our mana, because we could Surveil turn 2 Ajani, they push Ajani, and then maybe we go turn 3 Ajani, Ocelot Pride. That's also a play. We draw a discharge. We're going to play out Ajani here. So they did have the 2nd push and Bowmasters, so they clear a board. Again, this is a pretty tough matchup. They have a lot of cheap removal for our creatures. We draw the 3rd Ajani, which is hilarious. We're really saving this Wrath of the Skies. We want to kind of cash out as best we can with this. So we pass. They Green Sun Zenith for 3 for the first time this match. They get Grist. I think they draw so many Green Suns. They just keep cycling through them. They downtick Grist. They kill our Ajani. So we could have discharged the Cat Warrior token and then flipped Ajani. But because we have another Ajani, I'm going to value the Surveil into our 3rd Ajani. I think I didn't want to do that because I wanted to save discharge for Grist, because we didn't have any other way of getting that off the battlefield. And what's nice about this is that we get 2 energies saved for Wrath of the Skies. So we play the 3rd Ajani, hold up a Surveil land, they Green Sun again, this time for Endurance. They want to keep us off Flage. No attacks, draw Elegant Parlor, we put Arena to the yard. So the mistake's coming up soon. So we attack with both, daring them to block so that way Ajani would flip. We decide to Static Prison now. This is to conserve life, and it's questionable if we even needed to do that. They rumble. The reason it's questionable is because we have the Wrath. We plan on Wrathing, so it's a little weird. Okay, here's the mistake that we make. The misclick, I'll say, not the mistake. We have great intention. So we also Static Prison because then we get more energy. So maybe that's what I was thinking at the time. So now we do decide to let this go. Endurance gets us back. So what I want to do is attack with Cat Warriors, see if they want to flip Ajani, because we want this to flip so that way our Wrath doesn't clear it. They don't fall for it. And then this is the misclick. So we Thraben Charm our own Ajani instead of the cat token. So pretty brutal misclick. With this, we're trying to flip Ajani and then Wrath the Skies, but we're already too far gone. Their board is a little bit out of control, so we have to Wrath. X equals 3, we wipe the board, and we're happy we have a Seasoned Pyromancer to refuel, hoping they don't have a Bowmasters. We play land. They do have the Bowmasters, not surprised. I feel like they always have it, right? So they Bowmasters, they ping Pyro, we draw another one, but we also draw another Wrath the Sky. So we want to be patient if possible. So we just get a tap land. They do Green Sun for Endurance again. So we're fine with this. They're adding to the board. We get another board wipe. And we have to board wipe before we do anything because we don't want to Seasoned Pyromancer into the Bowmaster. And we have to use it for... We could hold up 1 mana, but we're just using all the energy here. So we get to save 1 energy, maybe for a future thing. They play Yawgmoth, Halfling. We have March for the Wolf. Like everything is really good here. They have 1 card in hand. We march the Wolf. We play Spyro. We draw Ocelot Pride. We're looking pretty good. We're drawing pretty well. We're drawing a lot of cards. Our opponent has gone through half of their deck almost. We get to play Flage. They top decked Quarter Calling for 2. So this is for Bowmasters. They eat our Pride, so that way we can't make cats. That was our one way out. We get in because we're going to be winning the race. They can't really attack through this. And we have Flage. So they Green Sun again. This is like the 3rd or 4th time. They don't find anything. They find Yawgmoth. So again, we're really happy about this. They were looking for Endurance, they were looking for Grist, I guess. So we find Static Prison. I think we prison the Wolf. We do Static Prison the Wolf, get in for 2. We do prison the Wolf too because I think we plan on escaping Flage, and one way to do that is to do that. So we can let this die, and then we can cast Flage from the yard. So we needed that 1 more card, so that's why we let that die. We're going to eat Bowmasters. Of course, they top decked another Chord, and they get to get back Yawg. So now the game's a little bit more interesting. We have another Spyro. Except we draw 2 lands, so that sucks. So they're going to kind of eat away at our board. They find the 5th Green Sun, and they just flood the board. So here's where we should win. This is where we make the mistake. We should only attack with Flage, put them to 2, put them to 1. Just imagine if we drew anything else but lands. It would make this game so much easier. So the mistake is we attack with all. We're at 8. We think we're at a safe life total, but we forget about Yawgmoth's secret text, proliferate. So they attack with all, they proliferate. So if we didn't attack with everything, we could have blocked here and then swung out for lethal next turn, and they swing out for Exacxi. We made a bunch of mistakes, and it cost us the match. All right, so this is match 4, and this hand, it has 4 lands, which is 1 too many to start out, I'd say, but it has Guide Pride, so pretty easy keep, I'd say. We're just going to go Guide Pass, and we can even just get a Plains too, because we have so many lands. They go Mountain, Ragavan, which is like the best start similar to round 1 against Zoo. Ragavan's just terrible against our deck. So we go Sacred Foundry. We get to go Guide of Souls into Ocelot Pride. Just live the dream here. We pass, and they go Ajani. So we know we're up against the mirror now. We have 3 lands. We don't want to draw any more lands, and we draw a land. So looking pretty rough. We have this going on, fortunately, but this is just terrible. So we're going to start to Surveil. We see Thraben Charm. We actually bin that. Looking back, we probably could have kept that and use that as some type of removal in the future. Kind of some loose surveils here, but we do get in with Ocelot Pride. Because we have the energy, we can fly over, trigger that life gain, and make more cat. They get in with the Cat Warrior token. We don't block because we don't want to flip a Johnny. They shotgun Sacred Foundry, so they're going to have, is it Flage, I think? Yeah, they have the Flage for the Ocelot Pride, which kind of ruins our plan. We draw a Johnny, which is an actual threat, so we like that. And we get to trigger Guide of Souls a bunch of times. So now we have 8 energy, so that means we get to double Guide of Souls attack. This is actually the first time we get to do this in the challenge, and we do this another time towards the end. So double Guide of Souls, all the energy, it's insane. So we swing out for 6. We have lethal next turn, but not anymore because they play another Flage. They eat our Johnny, and they have Ocelot Pride. So they're coming back. This match is always a slog depending on who gets what. We're going to Surveil, end of turn. We're going to find a Static Prism. We're going to keep that on top. So we're going to cast Static Prison here. So now we have a decision to make. We could eat the Ajani, so that way it doesn't flip. Or we could eat Ocelot Pride, so that way they don't gain life and they can't make more cats. So we decide to eat the Ocelot Pride. It's also a first striker, so it gets through all of this. So we're going to attack. We attack like this just because we want to give the Cat Warrior token flying, and Ajani could easily block and they could just trade here. So we put them to 2, and we got rid of their lifelink. We play a Flooded Strand. We don't have any more Surveil lands, and they concede. Game 2, this is a fine 7. We have removal for their turn 1 play. We have a turn 2 play, and then if all else fails, we have a Wrath. So they start with Ragavan again for the second time in a row. We draw a Guide of Souls, which is a nice turn 1 play, but we don't want to play that out because if we play that out, they kill it, they get in with Ragavan, and they kind of start the chain from there. So we just want to kill Ragavan in combat. So we shotgun a Sacred Foundry, Galv charge it. They play a Surveil land. We'd like to see that. They put a Discharge in the yard, which makes me think that they have one in hand, and they play a Pride. So we're going to play out a Johnny. We want to get more threats on the battlefield. We could have also played out God of Souls Surveil land, but because they have the Pride, I don't want them to kill one thing and just get in for free. So they do have the second Discharge. And because we have the Wrath, they're going to get the life gain regardless, but we're not going to take damage. So here, we're going to just wipe the board. We have the energy from the Discharge, so we can Wrath this guy's X equals 2, and they're just going to ping us twice. Goblin Bombardment really is the mirror breaker. Looking back to, another play we could have made was just carrying the Goblin Bombardment, because they probably wouldn't have sacked their board and pinged us. So maybe that was the play, and then they untap. Like, who cares if they get in for a little bit more damage? So we do have the other Wrath. We draw more removal. We find the Pride on top, which is huge. We get to play Guide of Souls, hold up everything, and then just pass. Unfortunately, they mill a Flage into the graveyard. So we went from probably winning this game to just auto losing because they milled this in the graveyard. So now they escape Flage with Arena. They put us to 6. So we have to Wrath the Skies here. We can't let this live or else we're dead. So we clear the board. Unfortunately, they have another Arena of Glory that's hasted, and then they swing out. Put us to 3. They flip a Johnny, and then they have lethal with a 0. So that one flip of Flage into the graveyard just totally swung the game. Flage is the mirror breaker, and Goblin Bombardment is the mirror breaker. All right, game 3. This is a fantastic hand. This hand, I don't think this hand gets much better. We have removal, we have Guide Pride, a Johnny. I guess the only way it could be better is if we had Goblin Bombardment. Wrath the Skies is a nice reset, but we don't really need Wrath when we're on the offense with this. So Goblin Bombardment instead of Wrath would make this hand the best. So this is going to be an easy guide. And guess what they go? Ragavan for the 3rd time. So this card should be boarded out post-board. I'm not sure why they kept it in. This is just the worst opening for them. Now we get to Surveil. We're going to Surveil Thraben Charm into the yard. We're looking for a 3rd land, but we get Ocelot Pride, and we're going to pass just like game 1. So now we're going to start to run away with the game. They play Goblin Bombardment. We find our own Goblin Bombardment. We're going to play a Johnny out, though, instead. If they want to kill something, they have to do it now. And they kill Ocelot Pride now, which is fine. But the reason we do that is because we want to trigger Guide of Souls, and we want that energy to start pinging in for way more damage. And if we get the pump Guide of Souls, it doesn't die to Discharge. Put them to 12. Again, we're on the offense, so playing out all these creatures to kill them as fast as possible is the most important. They just play a tap land into another Ragavan. So keeping Ragavan just totally punished. We draw another Johnny. This is going to be an easy bombardment because we already have a Johnny out. We attack with all, daring them to flip, to block the flip. They're just going to block here. So looking back, the reason we didn't sack anything to kill Ragavan was because if we sack a cat token, target Ragavan, they sack Ragavan and just kill our other cat. So we wanted to have at least one cat live. So it's okay that we didn't get in for damage, but at least one cat lives. So Johnny flips, we get to 0, ping them to 6, and there's no way they can get out of this. They'd have to draw, they can't even escape Flage. Unfortunately, they do draw the Wrath. So it's a good reset for them. They X equals 2. We just ping them 3 times. They're down to 2. We have the land, we have Spyro, and then we have 0 here. So they did get to reset the board, but we had the answer. Cast Spyro, a Johnny 0, and we get there. All right, round 5. This is against Ruby Storm. These are going to be some of the fastest games ever. Our opponent is not messing around. In the blind, we keep this hand. We have Guide of Souls, a Johnny, Bombardment, Thraben Charm is flexible, removal. We have a little bit of everything, so it's nice. They start off with the Gemstone Caverns, pitching Strike It Rich, so we know we're against Storm. This is, again, another unfavorable matchup for Boros Energy. So I'm like, ugh. All right, so we play Guide of Souls. They play Ruby Medallion, which we're happy about because we get to Static Prison and play another Guide. So they're never getting that back in terms of energy. So we Static Prison it, play another Guide of Souls, pass the turn, and they concede. So they definitely could have played it out a little bit more. I'm not sure what was in their hand, but only they know. All right, game 2. This is a pretty solid hand. We have the Wear Tear for the Ruby Medallion. We have early threats, easy keep. They go Wooded Foothills, go. We start off with the Ragavan. We want to start ramping. They Surveil a land to the yard. As soon as your Storm opponent starts with tap 2 mana, play Desperate Ritual, you know you're probably dead. If they cast the Ritual before casting the Cost Reducer, more often than not, you're dead. So it's turn 2, and they just have everything. They have the Medallion, they have the Ral, they have the Rituals, Metamorphose, they have the Piff, and they have the Grape Shot. So They just had the turn 2 nuts there. Game 3 against Storm, and we're going to keep this hand. It has a little bit of everything to try to stop them as much as possible. These take care of Rao, and these handle the Ruby Medallion. So we're going to lead off on a fetch surveil land. They just go Mesa pass. We surveil a land to the yard. Definitely don't want that. We find Ocelot Pride, which is nice. So we're going to cast that, and we're going to hold up everything else. There's no reason to tap out, and for good reason, as you'll see. So our opponent's going to surveil here. They put a Ren's Resolve in the graveyard. They play a mountain, and guess what they cast? Another ritual. So you're like, come on, dude, are we going to get turn 2'd 2 games in a row? And they have it. They have the turn 2 again. But lucky for us, we kept open our 1 mana, like a smart person, and we're going to march their Ruby Medallion. We have to pitch a Johnny to do it for the cast. We're going to pitch a Johnny instead of Static Prison because I want more removal just in case, like if they have another Ruby Medallion or something. That's the only way they can win. So we do get that. They cast Manamorphose. They have 2 mana to do what they will. They cast Ren's Resolve, and they find a Ral and a Pending. So unfortunately, we find another Arena of Glory. We get in, make a cat, and just pass. So we have the discharge for Ral, and that's all they have. So I decide to use the discharge because it can only be for Ral. And we draw another discharge, just in case. We just attack with the cats, and our opponent does nothing. We draw a Ragavan. We get to haste the Ragavan. We draw a Reckless Impulse. We decide to cast that because we're not doing anything else. It does go to the graveyard, but we don't really care. We find a Ranger Captain and a Sacred Foundry, and we just pass. Play the land, pass. They play their land, and just concede. So we're currently sitting 4-1 after punting away match 3, which we actually got the pair down against that last Storm opponent, so we have to win this for our winning in to have any chance of making the top 8. And this hand in the blind is solid, so we're going to keep this. We have removal, we have some aggression, totally fine to keep this hand. And we're going to start with Ragavan. It's better than Guide of Souls because it can start like ramping us, and we don't have the Guide Pride. Unfortunately, we draw another land, but we do get in with Ragavan, so lucky for us, we hit an Ocelot Pride. So now we have the Guide Pride. So that's a fantastic flip off of Ragavan. Just doing Ragavan things. We're going to fetch Shock here. Go down to 14. We don't really care because we have Guide. And we know they don't have removal because they would have used it on Ragavan. So now we just get to do the Guide Pride thing. They surveil a land to the yard, and we send it back. We have Discharge available. They play a Ajani. This is a prime time to discharge the Ajani before anything happens, and then they send it back. We find Goblin Bombardment, so we're going to surveil Flaging to the yard. We don't need that yet. Going to play Goblin Bombardment. We're going to ping the cat token just because it would just block Ragavan. So now we get in with everything. We get to boost the Pride, put it to 3. We flip another Goblin Bombardment, which we don't need, make a cat, and then they concede. So game 2 against Boros Energy, and this hand is not very good. So we're going to definitely throw that one back. This hand is also pretty medium, but we're not going to go to 5. And it's like fine. It's a very defensive hand. So against the mirror, you definitely want to figure out if you're in the offensive or the defensive. We're going to put back a land. We're going to play in the Wrath of Skies. They just go Sacred Foundry, Guide of Souls. We're going to copy them because we have to add to the board before we Wrath of Skies. We can bait out some stuff. So they discharge it, play Mesa, get in and just pass. So they're going to plan to surveil. We start with the surveil. We don't play Goblin Bombardment just because we need some more threats and we want to just play out Guide of Souls again. If we just play Goblin Bombardment and pass, Wrath of Skies looks a lot worse. So they surveil another land to the yard. They Static Prison. So far this is looking amazing for us. They're playing right into Wrath of Skies. Feeling really confident. We have the redraw with Spyro. We find a discharge. We do keep it on top, and then we play out Goblin Bombardment. So this is fine to play this now because we're going to X = 1 for Wrath. So we want to use our mana. It could be dicey if they play a 2-mana creature that we want to wipe. So they actually tear our Goblin Bombardment, which kind of stinks. We don't really care again because we're going to be wrathing. And if they do play a 2-mana creature out, and there you go. They actually gave this flying. So they used all their energy and Static Prison left. So now we got Guide back and they play a Johnny. So we're excited for this. We're going to get to Wrath the entire board. They attack. We go to 10. Easy Wrath of Skies. We can't even attack into anything. So we're just going to Wrath and pass. Next turn, we get to refuel with Spyro. So here's where it starts to get dicey. They cast Flage, target us. And we're like, sure, we don't care. We get to refuel, look at our hand. We have a nice setup next turn. I'm not sure why we didn't play out Guide of Souls. Can't remember why. They top deck Arena of Glory. And then, as you guys know, they have Flage in the yard and we just auto lose. A little unfortunate by that, but we definitely were close to making a comeback here. All right, now we're in game 3 of the winning in. And this is a 2-lander. Has some removal, has some aggression. Showdown's pretty decent in the mirror. That's why we bring it in, because the games can get grindy. So we're going to just play Sacred Foundry, Guide of Souls, send it back, and they're going to do the same thing. So typical mirror match. We get to kill Guide of Souls, play our own Guide of Souls, and get him for 1. So this is really nice, Guide of Souls and a Johnny, because we're going to get so many triggers. It's just going to be insane. They play Goblin Bombardment, which is really nice for us. They're not adding to the board in terms of threats. They're setting up. So right now we're on the offensive. They're on the defense. So again, that's really important in the mirror. You got to figure out where you're at, where you stand. We play a Johnny, get a million triggers. So now we're up to 6 energy. So now we get to attack for double energy. So just attacking for 6 casually. Now there's really nothing they could play. They could Wrath X equals 1 to get rid of Guide of Souls. That's probably the worst case scenario, but they do play Spyro. They pitch Goblin Bombardment and Ocelot Pride. Those cards aren't going to do anything in this matchup. And then lucky for us, we draw our 3rd land. So that's going to be game because we get to Spyro, make a bunch of tokens, make a bunch of energy, and just swing out for lethal. Cast Spyro, gain all that life, discard the 2 cards. Fortunately for us, they're 2 spells. So we trigger Guide 4 times, and then we just attack here. We attack with all just because it doesn't really matter. They're going to block, ping, sack, whatever. They can't kill the Guide of Souls. That's the main thing. They only have 3 damage to throw around. And fortunately, these are 3/4, so we're going to be swinging for Exactsies. And we get the win in. All right, game 1 of the top 8. And we decide to keep this hand. It's close. Like, we have removal, we have a threat, and then Goblin Bombardment can be amazing. We have Surveil lands here. Arena of Glory could be good with Flage later on. It's medium, but it's like fine. And they just go tap land, Godless Shrine. So we know they're on Orzhov Ketramose just from this. Unfortunately, we draw a land. Like, we don't want to see any more lands, and our top deck is a land. And that's going to be kind of the issue with this specific. We top deck another land. So already not looking good for us. We assume that they're going to have Ophelia. So we attack in, holding up Galvanic Discharge. They flash it in, we kill it. Pretty much as we planned. They even had the Overlord, which they have every single game. They have like the Philia Overlord combo, which is probably the strongest combo in their deck, and they have it every time. So we just have to kind of live with that, unfortunately. So we kill Philia, they play Overlord, they could get Philia back, but they find a Solitude. So this is where the matchup gets really hard. We draw Ocelot Pride, which is a good draw. Unfortunately, we know they have Solitude. So we're going to play a Goblin Bombardment first. We're going to get our damage in, hiding the fact that we have Ocelot Pride. Even though they're going to target Ocelot Pride regardless. We're going to get a Plains here. Yeah, we get a Plains, play Ocelot Pride, and we're going to make them use the Solitude before end step. They pitch an Ephemerate. We get to ping them for 1. So you might think that's good there, but it's not really a 2-for-1 because they got it back with Overlord. So now they just go Emperor of Bones. They pretty much had the perfect like 2-3-4 play for this deck. It's like exactly what you want to do with Philia, Overlord, Emperor, Solitude. So we drew a bunch of lands. They kind of drew the perfects for their deck specifically. They attack, they flicker Overlord, they get back Solitude. We draw another land. So just did not work out this game. Very unlucky. All right, game 2 of the top 8. And we keep this hand. It's like a solid. We have Ocelot Pride. We have removal for Philia. We have a bunch of aggression with the Johnnies. So we're going to run some stuff out. Unfortunately, they had pending. We draw Wear Tear, which a very timely Wear Tear will come into play. We play a Johnny. Unfortunately, they have the Solitude on our Ajani, but they're 2-for-1ing themselves, and we have another Ajani, so we're happy about that exchange. Unfortunately, they have the Overlord, so now the 2-for-1 isn't a big deal because they can get Solitude back. Again, lucky for us, we have the Wear Tear to get rid of this whenever we need. We play Flooded Strand, attack with the cat. We're going to play out the other Ajani, and we're going to either Surveil with this or have some type of removal. So just like game 1, they have the combo again. Flicker Wisp, Overlord. And you can't be mad. Like, this is what the deck's supposed to do, but you're just like hoping they don't always have it. So we wait for them to target the Overlord because they could target a token and get rid of it. They target Overlord, we fetch, we tear, and now they're just kind of screwed. So we get to flage away the Flicker Wisp. You can almost flage their face and ping this, but I really want to keep up a lot of removal because they are a creature deck. So we attack with all and then just send it back. Put them to 10. They Surveil. They keep a card on top, and they play Bogart Trawler. We actually get trawlered a lot this match. I feel like they have it a lot. And then, fortunately for us, we draw Goblin Bombardment. And then, unfortunately for us, they have the Solitude, which I think we knew about, but we have the Discharge. So we get to flip a Johnny here. We get to ping that, get him for 2. They have no cards in hand. We have a Johnny, Goblin Bombardment. They topped the Vindicate. So that was the card they kept on top, was Vindicate. And they get rid of a Johnny. I feel like Vindicate, I don't know if I like keeping that on top, to be honest. We draw a land, not really what you want to see. Fortunately for us, our opponent has nothing, and we draw another land. So we're getting lucky that our opponent's not doing much. They did draw a Fatal Push, so they stay alive for now, but we just attack. I don't know if they see it. I guess they didn't see it because they were still playing, but they ping and we get there. All right, game 3 of the top 8, and we're going to keep this hand. It has removal, it has threats, little land heavy. So again, we have to make sure not to draw any lands. We draw Ragavan. So that's like a solid turn 1 play. Just going to run that out. They surveil a land to the yard. And I'm going to say we get soloed by 1 card. We draw a land, which, like we said, was really unfortunate. We do not want to draw a land. They have the Fatal Push. We have the Ajani. Yeah, it's coming. There it is. Ketramose. So Ketramose literally solos us. And they have the Solitude, Pitch Solitude. So they're running on all cylinders. We're not looking too hot. We have no way of dealing with this. We draw another land, unfortunately. We just have to hope that they can't exile things quick enough before we can get all our damage in. So we're going to Spyro away 2 lands. We find another Spyro and a Flage. So not too bad. Unfortunately, there's the Trawler. Our hopes of keeping everything not in exile dashed by another Bogart Trawler. This is the first one of this game. So now Ketramose is online. It gets in for 4. We find a Johnny. We attack in. We discharge. We flip a Johnny. We ping Bogart Trawler and we pass. Now they find Relic so they can start drawing and pinging. They get him for 4. They target a Johnny, so we're going to actually double block here just to save it. And we almost do stabilize. Like they might be, I'm pretty sure they top deck the answer, but they're also drawing, like you guys will say, I can't even say top deck because they draw so many cards. They also don't use Relic to the full advantage, so they crack it before actually tapping it. So they miss out on a card or 2, which could have mattered for them, but not really because they still draw a million cards. We see Ocelot Pride. We keep that on top. So that's just a funny note that they're not even drawing as many cards as they could be, and we still get crushed by just a single card. So we play Ocelot Pride, play Seasoned Pyromancer. We draw an Ajani, which is not too bad. We get to ping them. Like, we're kind of stabilizing. We do have to pass. They flash out Philia, which is pretty annoying because I think they have, the Overlord. So they find Philia Overlord. They attack with both. They flicker with Philia. We just let Ajani die because we don't want to lose all our creatures, and we have another Ajani. I was considering double blocking. I want to keep Ocelot Pride, and if we block with Spyro, we don't have any red permanents. Decided to keep it around. There's the second Bogart Trawler, and they find Relic. Overlord comes back. So we draw Thraben Charm, which is a nice pickup, because that means we get to take out the Overlord before it can do anything. Play a Johnny. We get in, and it's actually looking pretty good. We have the City's Blessing, so we make a bunch of cats. We make Cat Warrior token because of a Johnny. So, like, this isn't too bad. Unfortunately, so that was like the thing I was talking about. They just sacked Relic instead of targeting something first. But unfortunately, because they've seen so many cards, 40 to 24, they have the board wipe. And they X equals 2, so they just wipe our entire board. They still have Ketramose in play. We have no cards in hand. They attack for 4. We draw Goblin Bombardment. We play it just to humor. They play Emperor. They're just going to eat our Johnny, maybe adapt, but they have 7 cards in hand. We have 0, so soloed by Ketramose. All right, so that was our top 8 Boros Energy challenge run. So other than those match 3 mistakes, I thought our challenge went really well. I thought the deck performed really well, and I thought we drew pretty well. I think Boros Energy is a great choice for these challenges. You have the top 4 decks with Energy, Eldrazi, Orzhov, and Temur Breach. I think playing any one of those decks is a solid choice, but Boros Energy has just felt so consistent. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that challenge review. We definitely plan on playing more challenges, whether it's with Boros Energy or any one of the other top decks. So if that sounds like something you're into, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Peace.